Welcome back, my gentle people. This is Corner Stories, and today we have two stories and both stories come with updates. So let's get into it. I've known my husband for 6 years, been married for 1. I moved across the country for college when I was 18, where I met my 24 husband, 25. I've only been back a couple of times over the years, mostly for holidays, but my husband had never gone back with me until we ended up moving back to be closer to my family. Since we've been back, I've been trying to get closer to my family, especially with my sister. She was in some bad relationships and cut off contact with me and my parents for a few years, but she's back now and I had hoped that we'd be able to build a relationship. I had noticed that she'd not been coming over to my place as much, not spending as much time with the family, and then a few weekends ago she asked me if we could talk. She said that she felt that she wanted to let me know that my husband had been making comments and saying things to her that she thought were inappropriate. My sister is gorgeous, beyond beautiful, and she's always attracted attention, even from married men. My husband had been making comments about her body and her looks, compliments, but ones that made her feel uncomfortable. During Christmas, he had told her how attractive she was and some stuff about how lucky her boyfriend was. Since then, she's been trying to not be around him as much by not coming around as much and was afraid of how I was going to react if I found out. I was obviously really upset, but I told her that I understood and that it wasn't her fault and that it wouldn't happen again. My husband and I ended up in a fight when I confronted him about what she had told me, but eventually he admitted that he'd said most of that stuff to her, even though he tried to pass it off like he didn't mean anything by it. I made it clear that he wasn't to say anything like what he'd said to her again and that he'd apologize for his inappropriateness. He agreed with everything I asked of him. I let her know about my conversation with my husband, and that he'd apologize whenever she felt like hearing it, but she's still not been coming around to family events. I'm so scared that his comments have driven a wedge between my sister and the rest of us. She and I hadn't talked for a long time until I had moved back, and I've been scared that something is going to make her want to leave again. Comments: everyone is telling you that your husband is a creep. Stop defending him and let that sink in. He is married to you and still openly hits on your sister. You have to know, if he's shitting this close to where he eats, it's not the first time. Take the blinders off already. Why are you not more concerned with your husband wanting to sleep with your sister? OP, I am, believe me. I was crying for days when I found out. But right now, I'm just scared of losing my sister because of my husband, and I don't know how to fix it. If I were her, I'd see you as inextricably tied to him as long as you're married to him. I'd imagine the knowledge that you stay with him despite this won't exactly make your sister trust you. OP, that's what I'm afraid of, and I don't know what to do about it. Is splitting up with my husband the only way to keep my relationship with my sister? Your husband wants to sleep with your sister. If he had the chance in his advantage, you'd be split long ago. Update: 12 days later. I was honestly so surprised by the amount of responses that my original post garnered. I tried to read everyone's thoughts, and I just want to say that I am really grateful to everyone who offered some perspective and took the time to share their thoughts, even if they were upset with the fact that I was handling everything in the wrong way. I wanted to update anyone who is interested in the state of everything right now. I feel I'm still going to be making people upset and angry, but I'm still trying to work out all that has happened in the last few weeks, and I'm hoping that I can eventually wrap my head around the situation and make better choices. One of the things that many people said is that my husband may have said or done more than my sister had told me, and that she's feeling unsafe and that I've betrayed her. This thought is what has gotten to me the most, and it's been weighing on my shoulders. I'm struggling very hard with what to do next. The main update I have is that my sister and I have been talking. She hadn't been responding to most of my messages and calls since the last time that we had spoken in person, which is when I told her what I talked about with my husband. The last message I sent her was one that asked if she wanted to get lunch, which was the day before I posted. She ended up answering that one a couple of days after the post and agreed to have lunch with me. When we met up, she acted very normal. She seemed very much like her usual self, very bubbly and outgoing. I honestly can't tell if she's actually more upset and bothered than she's appearing. Her birthday is coming up at the end of this month, and she wants to have a girls' trip weekend away, and she wants my help planning everything. She seems excited about that, and, as far as I can tell, she is behaving as if everything is fine. I didn't know if I should bring up the situation with my husband, but I ended up asking her about it again. She reiterated what she had told me before. He complimented her on her looks and her outfits in a suggestive way, and had said the thing about her boyfriend being a lucky man. She said, again, that she was mostly concerned with how I was going to feel about it. I didn't ask her if she felt unsafe around him. I feel now like I should have, but, at the time, I was still afraid that she didn't trust me and might feel like I was putting her on the spot. During lunch, I asked her what she would think if I left him. She repeated that her main worry before coming to me was causing issues between my husband and I, but told me that she didn't like my husband and didn't think he was a good guy, in general and specifically for me. I'm still worried about her, that she feels threatened and afraid of my husband, but right now she's acting okay with me. I'm hoping that if things continue to seem normal, we can continue to talk and she might open up more. Since that lunch, we've seen each other several times. I made dinner for my mom last Sunday and she came over to eat with us, and then we did some planning for her birthday. Again, she's still acting as if everything is normal, but I'm still incredibly worried about her. The other thing that happened is that I started sleeping over at my mom's house. My mom has been having health mobility issues that have made it difficult for her to do a lot. I had been trying to do as much as I could for her, but she's been needing someone around more full-time. I'd been so overwhelmed these past few months driving over to her house every day to drop off food and do the things around the house that she needed. I had already been considering finding someone to stay with her until she's back on her feet. After everything that happened, and then what I read in the last post, I talked to her about it. She agreed to let me stay with her in exchange for helping her out more. My mom's extra bedrooms are used as storage, so I had to spend last weekend uncluttering a place to sleep, but one of my sister's friends came over to help me clear out the room and I've been staying here since then. My husband figured out what I was doing and asked if it was because of what had happened with my sister. I told him that I wasn't lying about wanting to help my mom more, but that it was part of it. He was pretty upset, but he eventually let go. Right now my primary focus has to be on helping my mom and bringing my grades up in grad school, and I've been too anxious and upset over the last few weeks to concentrate, and I can't afford to let my GPA slide. I'm also trying to be available for my sister whenever she wants to talk. Even though things appear to be stable with her right now, I'm still really anxious over what she might be thinking and feeling. It's a lot, and I'm really struggling with figuring out how to balance everything right now. My sister has been really helpful and so has her friend. My sister brought dinner for me and my mom this week, and her friend left some frozen meals for me to heat up when I'm too tired or busy to cook. He's also going to help me get my mom to her doctor's appointments this week. I'm scared to admit that I still don't know what to do about my husband. I got so many messages and DMs from people who were upset that I hadn't left him yet, but I'm still just feeling too overwhelmed to really come to terms with everything. I'm just trying to get through next month. I've got midterms and my sister's birthday, and then I feel like I can take a breath and take some time to figure out what to do about my relationship. It's very hard to think clearly right now, and I hope that the space between my husband and I is going to help and not hinder that. My husband is extremely upset. He's been calling and texting night and day with all the same questions that I couldn't answer in my last post, and I feel bad that I don't have any answers for anyone yet, but unfortunately I'm still trying to figure it out. Again, I know there are so many people who are going to hate me for this, and I'm sorry, but I'm still just trying to wrap my mind around everything. Before I move into the new update, I thought this was a relevant comment that I wanted to share. Big change can be scary, but honestly, if your husband felt comfortable making those types of comments to your sister, then probably it is the tip of the iceberg. I think you are making the right moves. It is also to take you time. You don't have to rush to leave him and set things on fire. Sometimes people just need time to process, plan, and execute, and that is okay. You are showing support for your sister and your mom and have out your husband on notice. None of those things are small things. Be proud. New update. I'm worried that my husband's comments to my sister may have driven her away. 1 month later, I wasn't planning on making another update post, but I got a couple of comments and messages today, so I wanted to put out my final update. My husband and I are going to be splitting up. Like I said in my other update, I went ahead and moved in with my mom to take care of her for a few months, hoping that time apart would give me some clarity about everything. And, like I said in the previous post, my husband really didn't like that at all. We've probably fought more over the past month than we have in our entire marriage. Then, during one of our arguments, he ended up saying some awful, nasty things about my sister, and at that point I didn't want to go any further with him or the relationship. I'm still at a loss of what to do next. One of my sister's friends got me in touch with a lawyer, and it's been overwhelming. I've still got my mother in grad school and my job, so with divorce on the docket, I'm just trying to keep my head above water right now. Also, I just wanted to say thank you to the people who gave me encouragement and wanted to give me some genuine guidance. Comment. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I'm happy to see this update. I don't think you'd ever have been able to look at your husband the same way. Divorce is hard. It's messy, it's emotional, it gets worse before you get better. And it can be embarrassing because you're telling a stranger, your attorney, everything about your marriage. Lean on your friends and family, and take it one step at a time. One thing I did that helped me, I made a list of things I needed to do, and then crossed them off when I finished them. I added to the list all the time, but it made it more manageable. Plus I could see tangible results when I was despairing about whether or not I was making any progress. You can do this. Comment 2. It's upsetting to me that he could disrespect you all he wanted, you only seemed to care when it was aimed towards your sister. It makes me wonder how often you overlooked his poor treatment of you during the course of your relationship. I hope as you heal, you can find a way to be kind to and love yourself more. You deserve it, best of luck OP, it will be the most difficult thing you've ever had to do this far, but you will come out the other side far better off than you are now. Story 2. My fiancé, 35F, and I, 36M, were supposed to get married a couple of weeks ago, but I decided to call it off because I no longer trust her. Early on, we had in-depth discussions about our past, our goals, children, sexual preferences, and other, heavy, subjects so we wouldn't waste each other's time. Regarding our past, especially our past relationships, she put weird parameters around what we could talk about, like only sharing formative relationships and those she felt were important, and wanting to close the door on discussing it again. I thought it was weird, but reluctantly agreed. Fast forward a year later and we're engaged, I've moved in, and she's on a 9-month deployment. This is where things went south, she concealed an engagement. She told me she was engaged once, but she was engaged twice, the second to a service member. A hidden engagement to a service member while she's on deployment set off alarms. Does she still talk to this guy? Is he on deployment with her? She didn't even tell me, I put inconsistent details together and figured it out. When I brought it up, she said it wasn't important and I made a promise not to bring up past relationships. I explained it was important to me, and our promise doesn't cover new information. She said I was blowing things out of proportion and I broke her trust because I broke our promise. My therapist said she's gaslighting me. She concealed working in the adult industry. This did not come up when we talked about our work histories, but she later shared it punitively as an extension from the previous conversation. I explained I'd want to know important life choices, like winning the lottery, earning college degrees, doing adult industry work, being arrested, etc. It was here she told me she did adult videos, and said it was my fault because she felt compelled to mention it after I provided it as an example. I continued to be supportive and understanding but once again felt sour this didn't come up before. She concealed a power kink in the bedroom. This came up after she returned from deployment and, once again, wasn't mentioned when we were talking about sexual preferences. She blindfolded me and didn't want me to do anything. I felt used. I explained this to her, asked if it was related to her recent self-esteem issues, compensation, perhaps, asked how else power might play out in our relationship, how often this fantasy is at work when we're intimate, etc. She said she enjoys detached sex, whatever that means, then said she felt threatened by my questioning. When I asked her about it again, she said she wanted me to be relaxed, a complete 180 from her original story. My questions, to my mind, do not seem unreasonable. In fact, I would even go so far to say that I'd be stupid not to ask such questions. Her argument is that she cannot know what I find important and therefore can't provide that information up front, and that I'm sensitive in the way I reacted to finding out these details. I didn't react negatively, I responded with compassion and understanding, but I had questions and I wanted answers to them. My argument is there's a pattern of conveniently leaving out key pieces of information that may make her look bad. There's a social convention to put our cards on the table when we're talking about matters like these. She can work with me to understand what I might find important. I deserve to know who I'm marrying, and that she does, in fact, think these details important. Otherwise, why would she put guardrails up so she doesn't have to mention them, feel ashamed when sharing these details, and react defensively by attacking me when the subject comes up? I told her I didn't want to get married because I was worried that I'd continue to uncover details about her, that these details provide context and explain some of our other issues, and that I didn't appreciate how she played the victim and avoided my questions. She said this is the natural process of learning about each other and she can't anticipate what may or may not be important to me. Update. I had a few conversations with close friends who echoed most everyone's advice and I decided to break things off. I just can't do it anymore. After I proposed and moved in with her, here's what I discovered: she concealed an engagement, doing solo adult videos, a power kink, and the enjoyment of detached sex. She's mean, callous, and passive-aggressive. She has made a handful of hurtful comments that cut deep, and she's cold when we're trying to work through difficulties when tenderness and understanding are of paramount importance. Gaslights via Darvo, says things like, "I never said that," when I know she did, doesn't express much interest and doesn't support me when I come up short, gives variable answers that are inconsistent with each other when asked the same question over time. Despite all of this, I still care deeply about her and there is no ill will. We had good times together, and I feel sad and a yearning when recalling the memories full of laughter and enjoyment we shared. I worry I never really knew this person, that I fell in love with a mirage. She did a 180 when I made a material commitment and the effects were corrosive. I became tired, unmotivated, frustrated, angry, hypervigilant, and my interests went out the window. In short, I became a shell of myself. This cannot be tolerated. This is where I must draw the line and preserve who I am. It's also a time to reflect on what I contributed to the relationship, both good and bad, and how I can improve as a person. I'm still grieving our loss, but tomorrow is a new day full of new opportunities. And that is the end of the story. And what a story it was. I'm so happy that OP ended that very unhealthy relationship. I truly don't see how he could be happy with a person like that. It is madness if I'm being honest. But I digress. This is where I will leave you. I hope you enjoyed the stories I had for you. I certainly enjoyed them. Please be sure to drop a like or a comment, and it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and I will see you. Corner Stories signing off.